and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I am Dion Pittman. Along my side, Mr. Ed Williams. What's going on, Ed?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. Go blue, go blue. Michigan's doing quite well in a lot of things, from sports to happiness. So today, we have a very special guest that's coming on. We met through doing the podcast. Her company she works for and herself reached out to us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's at a place called Crazy Wisdom Bookstore, which has some history in Ann Arbor, from a wild tea room to all types of stuff. We'll get into all that stuff. So her name is Crysta. She is a writer and an editor and A Square living in Ann Arbor. Crysta, how you doing?
I'm good.
Welcome. So thank you so much for everything you've done so far for you and the company, Crazy Wisdom, from reaching out to us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's
really
cool.
Appreciated. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you let me write about you.
Thank you. So a couple people have reached out to us from that company, Crazy Wisdom. How did you guys hear about us?
My husband got into podcasting a few years ago. So it's he's sort of gotten me into it and interested in things. So I was looking at, what are some local podcasts? Because I'm a little more interested in local than necessarily some of the big national ones. I just find it more interesting. And you were, I think, one of the first ones that popped up, if not the first that popped up.
Yeah.
And I was surprised you're pretty new, relatively.
Yes.
So, yeah, I thought that was great. I wanted to get the word out.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. So, yeah, I mean, we just finished our first season, which we began around when COVID first dropped. And that was all audio. And we just transitioned into now this video, Zoom, YouTube. What are we on, Ed? Like the fourth or fifth one now?
Yeah, this will be 6, I believe. Yeah.
About 6. Okay. So thank you so much for coming on and helping us spread awareness of our city and just Ann Arbor mentality and everything.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
So in a nutshell, because you originally, is it Kalamazoo from K-Zoo?
Yep.
Okay.
From the zoo.
So, yep, K-Zoo. So in a nutshell, what does Ann Arbor mean to you?
Well, I felt like where I grew up it's not a small town, especially as far as Michigan is concerned. But it was very, not really oppressive, but kind of, you're expected to kind of toe the line, and most people were white, Christian, straight, and you were expected to be that way. And I never really felt like I fit in. So after I graduated college, the first thing I did was move to San Francisco.
Right.
I felt like that was like the polar opposite. And my father's dream actually was always to move to San Francisco. He was a total hippie. He's also a big fan of Ann Arbor. And then when he became sick, I moved back from San Francisco, but I didn't want to move back to Kalamazoo. It was just too small-minded for me. I just didn't fit. So I knew if I moved back to Michigan, the only place I could survive was Ann Arbor.
Nice.
Just there was no question in my mind. I was able to transfer my job, and they said, well, you can't just pick one location because we don't know if they'll be able to fit you in. You have to pick 3. But my 3 were Ann Arbor, Ann Arbor, Ann Arbor. Like, there was just no question in my mind. It had to be Ann Arbor.
Nice.
and luckily it was. And I've been here since 2010.
Nice.
Okay. Rock and rolls. So we were big skateboarders in our town, community high school. We did the whole downtown living.
Yeah.
A lot of our friends who were skateboarders transitioned to San Francisco, and also a lot went to Denver. But it always seems like there was some type of vibe, energy, connection. I don't know, was it with Frisco and Ann Arbor? Is it like very similar vibe, energy level thinking?
Yeah, it really is. Or at least when I was there, I've heard it's a little different with some of the tech industry. But I mean, we have Google in Ann Arbor too.
All right.
So
that's
right across from the Traverwood Library branch, actually, is Google, another Google HQ.
Wow.
So even with the tech vibe, we are kind of on the same wavelength as the Bay Area.
Very interesting. Okay. So you being a writer / editor, you're at Crazy Wisdom Bookstore. So you said that was the transition that got you into, I'm staying in Ann Arbor, I'm coming to Ann Arbor, and you started working there?
Yep. Because I was working in grocery. I worked in grocery for like 10-ish years. And that's a very physical job. It's very hard. And the older I got, the harder it was to do. And I ended up actually injuring my neck between a car crash, and then I injured it at work because I already had that injury. And I thought, I can't do this full time anymore. It's too hard on me. And a friend of mine was having tea in the Crazy Wisdom tea room, saw that they were hiring, or that the bookstore was hiring. And she said, if you don't apply for this job, I'm going to kill you. So I applied for the job and I got it pretty quickly, pretty easily. I just hit it off with everybody. I already had previous experience working for Walden Books. If anybody remembers those little mall
I remember that.
bookstores.
Yeah.
And I worked for a library before, so I had a lot of experience with books.
Okay.
And then since the owners of the bookstore also own a local magazine, the Crazy Wisdom Community Journal, they found out I was a writer. I sent them some of my writing samples, and so they invited me to take over a column. And then they created a column actually for me to write. So now I have 2 columns.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Very cool. Yeah, congratulations. So Ed was just in Ann Arbor for, I think, a 1-week trip, which probably extended to almost a month.
Yeah.
He actually ended up walking over there and checking it out.
I went and passed by. I left a message for you there.
I was just there. They didn't give it to him.
Oh no, that's too bad. Yeah, I went in, just tried to say hi, and I looked around. The place was very cool. I was just walking around downtown on an extended trip, and the beginning of September, the weather was amazing.
Yes.
So I was just cruising around downtown, having a good old time.
Yeah, that building is really interesting. It was built, I think, in the early 1860s.
Wow.
I was told the floors are the original floors, not the carpet, the wood part.
Wow.
And on the second floor, at least, is the original ceiling.
Wow.
Now, does that building have a name for the building?
It doesn't.
Okay.
It was
which
a for a while.
which area is it in? Because I've never been to Crazy Wisdom Bookstore, and I'm living in Orlando now.
It's right next to Venology on Main Street.
Okay.
Between Washington and Huron. Okay,
perfect. And with COVID and everything going on, is the building fully occupied? How much occupied is the building?
It's about,
you had to guess,
maybe half. Because they had to shut down the tea room because there wasn't a way. Because it's kind of typical of downtown buildings. It's very skinny. It's like long and narrow. So they were limited on how many people they can have in a space, and you had to have them seated 6 feet apart and all this stuff. And the tea room is very small, and it just couldn't accommodate that.
Right.
So they've actually shut down the second floor. So it's just the main floor, and then the employees use the basement.
Oh, really? Very cool.
I was gonna say I never saw a second floor or a tea room. I thought I spaced it or something. I was like, whoa, I must have missed it.
Yeah, they're hoping to reopen. I think maybe the beginning of next year. It kind of depends on where we are with COVID, what the rules are.
Right.
Because you're very limited in such a small, skinny space.
Yes.
All right.
I found it interesting. I was going back and forth to up north in Michigan, staying on a lake in the woods, and I was traveling around up there a little bit, and there seemed to be no restrictions anywhere, and no one was wearing masks anywhere that I went. Any restaurants, everybody was just sitting everywhere, close, everything was in full flow all around the whole rest of the state. It seemed like, or at least the northern part,
Yeah,
like
and Arbor, I've noticed, is very conscious of taking care of each other, of looking out for not just themselves but other people. Because when they did start kind of lifting the mask restrictions, when the county did, we have a very good county health department. You heard from customers both ways, people saying, well, I'm vaccinated, I shouldn't have to wear a mask, and other people saying, I can't believe you're not requiring masks. Like, you just heard both sides. And my husband told me recently that Washtenaw County is one of the highest vaccinated counties in the entire country. And I think that's just because of our more progressive attitude. We have, the University of Michigan Medical School is one of the best in the country. So I just think we're more conscious and a little more community oriented than other places.
And it's mandatory for all of the students at the University of Michigan, at least. I'm not sure about the rest of the universities in the area, but
I haven't heard, but we pay a lot of attention to U of M because it's right downtown.
Yeah,
Right.
it
which is
is.
unique.
It is downtown,
Yep.
you know. It's the two are one.
Yeah, whenever someone would come in and say, "Oh, where's the University of Michigan?" and I'd say, "Well, for one, what part?
Right.
It's very big.
Yeah.
It's got multiple campuses."
Yeah.
And then they'd say, "Well, like the main part, like where the old buildings are and the diag." And I'd say, "Okay, well, you just want to go up a couple blocks to Liberty, hang a left, and take it to the end." They're like, "No, no, 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 I want to get to campus." Yeah, go up a
That's
couple
it.
blocks to Liberty, hang a left, and
Yep.
it's right there. And they
Yep.
just they don't get that it's like this. Like there isn't just there's campus and there's Ann Arbor. It really is the same thing.
Yes. Someone on our show just said that too. They would get people asking them, you know, where's campus? They'd be downtown. Well, you know, across the street right there's a diag, you know, there's that.
Yeah,
You know,
it's right there.
Yeah.
And we've
I
always
went
said
to
it.
Western Michigan and Kalamazoo, and it's not like that. I mean, campus and Kalamazoo are very separate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's most places. We talk about it
I think
often.
so, a lot of places,
unique,
yeah.
Ann Arbor is because of that. It's really integrated like that, and it's almost like a city block of somewhere, like a big city. Like take a city block and just set it in the Midwest, and you know, that's what it seems like. You know, it's so tiny. You know, so and you get all the experiences of a bigger city too, with all the diversity that you encounter from a young age. You know,
I love
really
that.
really enriching place to grow up and to be in.
Yeah, definitely.
So many
I used to visit as a college student sometimes, and we would go down to the old Borders, the one down on the street, because we'd never been in a bookstore that big before.
Yes.
And there was a little anime and Japanese comic shop across the street called WYSIWYGs.
Oh,
WYSIWYGs.
And I have no idea what happened to them. Not there anymore. And we go to Pinball Pete's, play the arcade games, and just kind of make a day of it hanging out downtown. It's very walkable.
Yes.
Wow.
Pinball Pete's.
Now was that the which Pinball Pete's was that? Because there was the old school one, which was upstairs, and then the one now, which is downstairs, right?
It was downstairs.
It was downstairs. Okay. All right. So your bookstore, from what I'm reading, 1982 was open?
Yep.
Wow.
Same location?
This is a third location.
Third location. Okay, really? Where was the first?
Fourth. I think, well, I can't remember what's there now. Heavenly Metal used to be there. But I know has moved out. But it was teeny tiny.
Yeah.
Just very, very small. And then it kind of moved around the corner onto Fourth, where I think it's a record store there now.
Oh, really?
They just moved in. I don't know if it was Encore or one of the other ones. They've relocated. But when I first moved here, it was Catman, Dogman 2. It was the pet shop store.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't been there for a while, but I'll always think of them. And the owners of Crazy Wisdom actually own the building.
Oh, really?
Which is unusual.
Yeah, there you
go.
Most places rent. So we're extremely lucky that we own the building. And it went over just mega renovations.
Okay.
Because the second floor and the first floor used to be separate spaces. There is a back door that leads from the alley to the upstairs, and there's a stairwell. And the owners combined the spaces by adding that beautiful mahogany staircase now. That didn't used to be there.
Nice.
Really?
But they maintained a lot of the original fixtures, which is fantastic, and it's beautiful. And I would always get these guys come in who were architects or maybe architecture fans. They knew stuff about architecture, and they would go, "My God, these are the original beams." And I'm like, "Yep." "No, you don't understand. These are the original beams." "Yep."
Yep.
Like,
You want some tea? Nice. So that was probably just architects, from regular architects to students who are learning architecture, right? Coming in there, looking at that.
So yeah, if anyone is interested in architecture, go in and look up, because it's the original beams and the original floors and the original ceilings. And that's incredible to me, because it was built in the 1860s. Like, it's still there. We're still walking on it. We're still using it. That's incredible.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Well, you got me thinking, because my favorite part of every house in Ann Arbor, how big is this basement?
It's the size of the building. It's very long and skinny. And you can see the original foundations too. One side is brick and one side is stone.
Really?
Cool.
Wow, I love basements. And, I don't see them anymore, but like for me, basements were always my favorite parts of houses. I always loved them, whether it's from like a Freddy Krueger movie or just
Yeah,
making
the
your
basement
bedrooms
scares a
in
lot of
there.
people. I think it's
Yeah,
neat. I really like history, so I'm like, oh my God, these are the original foundation stones. This is so cool. And other people are creeped out by it. Because it's dark. There aren't any windows because it's
right.
an old building. Didn't build windows back then. There's maybe a coal chute. In fact, I think there's a space actually that kind of makes a little cubby in the back, and that was probably the coal chute, would be my guess.
All right.
Keep it warm.
Yep.
So you're talking. You said 1860 that building was built.
Yeah, the oldest picture I found was from 1865.
That's cool.
So of that block, I found it in a couple of books they have of old pictures of Ann Arbor that the library has. They have that block because that used to be the center of town, is Main Street Huron.
Wow.
Okay.
And it's shifted a bit since then.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking about, that sounds like very close to the time Detroit University, Michigan came to Ann Arbor, because when was it established in Ann Arbor? Or was it established around that time?
I can't remember. Shoot. I used to know this.
I know, right? I think I had it on my keychain or something. But it sounds like about that time. And it sounds like what we were talking with, I don't know if you saw our thing with Christina Crockett, a great information lady. She was the librarian at community high school for like 20 years. And she's just a walking book of information. And she explained to us, how the trains would come in and carrying all the stuff there over by the Gandy Dancer. And then all the products would be transported throughout town and this and that. It sounds like those days right there.
Yeah, because I know someone told me there was a real influx of people then, because that would have been around the end of the Civil War, and a lot of people coming north, and Ann Arbor had the university and was kind of booming. And it makes a lot of sense. You have the railroad right there. We're in a great location in Michigan.
Right.
Huron River.
Very interesting.
Yeah, with the river.
Okay, so with Crazy Wisdom Bookstore, to describe your bookstore and what people would walk into, what can they expect as far as selection when they walk into Crazy Wisdom Bookstore?
Well, it's a little different. It was originally founded as a Buddhist bookstore. Okay. So there is still a very strong Buddhist presence there, and we maintain a lot of ties with like Jewel Heart and some of the other Buddhist communities in town.
Okay. Cool.
But there's also a pretty strong like Wiccan and pagan presence as well. And a lot of people, because a lot of people who are now modern witches and pagans feel very isolated, especially in a more conservative state like Michigan. If you leave this area, it gets pretty conservative. So they come to Ann Arbor. They drive up from Ohio. They come from the Thumb. They come from all over Michigan to come shopping in Ann Arbor because they know it's a place that they can be safe, be themselves, be a little more accepted. A friend of mine, I actually met her at Crazy Wisdom. We worked together for a few years. She moved up from North Carolina, and she had been kind of in the broom closet, as they say. She'd had to hide her beliefs and her interests until she moved to Ann Arbor, and then she could be as wild and witchy as she wanted to be and explore whatever religious belief she wanted, because we have all of that in Ann Arbor.
Right.
Like, it's not that unusual. And she never, she tried to dress very, not necessarily conservatively, but not really too strange. But then after she moved here, she would dye her hair. She would wear really nerdy clothes. We're a really nerdy city too. All kinds of geeks and gamers, and comic book fans. I mean, there's Vault of Midnight on Main Street, which is a fantastic comic shop.
Go there every time.
And I mean, people come from out of town to visit that too.
Okay.
Now with the Ann Arbor Book Society, there's actually a bookstore map where you can pick it up at just about any of the bookstores, and it'll show you where all the other bookstores are, so you can take your own little book tour. Because that's unusual too about Ann Arbor. We have multiple bookstores.
It's crazy.
Right. I think Ed was, I can't remember who you're talking to. It could have been Christine, or it might have been, what's her name's out of Dewaskin, Rachel. I don't know if you ever heard of Rachel Dewaskin. She's a writer from Ann Arbor.
I have a couple of her books.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like her.
And I think we talked about, it might have been just how educated people from Ann Arbor, even if they didn't go to college, but some way we were talking, where books and reading and information in Ann Arbor, which is always a part of Ann Arbor, reading, writing, it just always seemed like, whether you were at the university or whether you didn't go to college and you were just working a regular job, like reading and writing and just education and conversation was just always like, it seemed like to me as a kid growing up, seeing everybody's parents, always just seemed natural how people were, they seemed pretty educated, even though they might not have went to a full 4-year college or anything like that. I don't know.
Absolutely. Like even being in Kalamazoo, I always knew, like growing up and being interested in writing, and my father was probably part of this too, that Ann Arbor was the place to go. In Michigan, if you were a writer or creative person, Ann Arbor was the place you went for writing. Whether you went to the university or not, didn't really matter. And I feel that living here. I know so many people who are into writing and just creative people that I just didn't feel like I had that same community in Kalamazoo. I had it in San Francisco, and when I moved away from San Francisco, I was kind of afraid of losing that, but I really didn't lose it. I found it almost immediately in Ann Arbor.
Nice.
Right. Wow. So as we mentioned, walking to your bookstore, you might go into a pagan witch area. You could go into a Buddhist religion area. I think we had a conversation also, you might have, is it a local writer area? Or
no, there is a local author shelf.
Okay.
And there's local history and local travel, which includes surrounding areas as well, and Michigan, because they're very proud to be locally owned and operated, and they're proud of where they are. So there is an emphasis on local. And in the before times, I did a lot of offsite events with like U of M and selling books for visiting authors. There used to be the Ann Arbor Street Fest that was for books. That's no longer around. And then the Carytown Book Fest, which is, I mean, that's pretty widely known. I worked that for 5 years, maybe.
Okay.
Met a lot of authors. I met Rachel there, Rachel Dwoskin.
Nice.
Cool.
I think she was an invited author one year.
Cool.
And I know some people that come to work that come up from Ohio, come from Indiana. One bookstore came over from Windsor, Ontario, to vend at the Carytown Book Fest. So I was told it was very hard to get into. And as a vendor, it was a little expensive because they wanted to keep it good, keep it solid. And it's not a big space. It's just over at our farmer's market. You're very limited on space there, but it was amazing to see these people come from all over just for books. Like we're a book town. Ann Arbor is a book town.
Oh yeah.
I like that saying right there. I think that totally fits it. I've never said that, but I mean, it totally fits it.
And it always has been, like, it's always been a kind of ahead of the curve, I feel, in a lot of ways. When we were young growing up, Dion, if you remember the magazine shop there down below that we used to go to. Right
by Hart Plaza.
Yes, exactly. And they had the craziest, this was mid 80s, and they had like magazines that I mean, it was crazy the selection they had, every stretch of the imagination. And, you know, that was really great to grow up and go into a magazine shop and thumb around and find like crazy, like Asian tattoo magazines and like, you know, the most random things. And you're just getting all this information from around the world, you know, from at a very young age. And, you know, I guess that stems from, you know, it being called like the Berkeley of the Midwest, you know, back to the whole California thing and the hippie vibe, because that was, you know, in 1969, Ann Arbor was with it. It was jumping.
Yeah.
It was going off, you know. We've covered, you know, we had everything. We had our little riots, protests, everything, rebellions,
activism.
Yeah, everything was going on, and it always kind of has been there. So, you know, I guess that's where it stems from, really, is that whole vibe.
Yeah, definitely. It's so unique within Michigan.
Yes.
Right.
And the Midwest, I think, at large, but certainly within Michigan. And when I first moved to Ann Arbor, I think a lot of people and like friends and family in Kalamazoo area and surrounding area were like, well, that figures. Of course, that's where she'd move. So I was like the weirdo in the family. And I was like, yeah, you all knew I would end up here. Because if I live in Michigan, it's going to be Ann Arbor.
Man. I mean, Michigan is such a great vibe. I mean, I can remember just waking up and just walking. You know, we a lot of our time was spent just pretty much downtown because we lived downtown and we skateboarded downtown. But just just your average stroll through the Diag on a regular sunny day, you know, watching people conversate, watching maybe someone laying next to a tree, just watching, you know, maybe skateboarding through like a protest or skateboarding through some activism, you know, just like we just watch, and it was just so normal for us from ages 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, just always seeing maybe a professor having a conversation with a hippie with no shoes and no shirt on, you know, with students, and maybe a couple of street guys, maybe some people that don't have homes living on the street. So it's always been just a mecca of great conversations, seeing all types of different people. And it was just normal for us. And then, like you said, once we left, we're like, wow, you know, it's very different when you leave, because we're so used to Ann Arbor living. But once you leave, you move away or whatever, you're really like, wow, like we realized we really had something special there. And you guys have something special, you know, living there, you know, which needs to be cherished and talked more about, I think, on stuff like this, because I think Ed and I yesterday, we were talking with a realtor in Ann Arbor, and I'm reading a quote she said, you have a vibe here, meaning Ann Arbor. It's either you know it or you don't. And it made me think, when I hear people talk negative about Ann Arbor, and I said it yesterday on the podcast, I said, I've never had like something I would say, oh, Ann Arbor sucks for this. And I think the conclusion we came to was, if you're having a bad time in Ann Arbor, maybe you need to look at your surroundings, your thinking, who you're surrounding yourself with, because there's so much beauty in the city and so much going on. You could be hanging around the wrong people. You know?
Yeah. It's like when I first transferred out here, a lot of my coworkers would be like, oh, these stupid stuck-up Ann Arbor. And I'm like, guys, you don't know what you've got.
Right.
like where I grew up, like, you didn't go downtown. Nobody went downtown. It wasn't safe. So like, you went to the mall. I was a mall rat. That was the only place we had.
Right.
So coming to a place like Ann Arbor, where it's like, you can walk for hours. You can spend a day just walking downtown, across the Diag, Southview. I mean, there's so much, and you see so many diverse people. Like a cousin of mine that grew up in a smaller town outside of Kalamazoo, he was saying like, well, what would you do if you see a woman walking at Meijer with a hijab? And I was like, I see them all the time.
Right.
I don't care. It doesn't bother me. They get their groceries. I get my groceries. I go home. Like,
and
you have people from all over the world.
Number one, this is the way I've always just kind of looked at it since like I was a kid, is you could be missing out on possibly one of your best friends in your life and you don't even know it, with that kind of mentality. How do you know?
Right there. And you hit the nail on the button. And when we were talking to Tanya, the realtor in Ann Arbor, because, you know, she's been all around as a young age. I think she moved around a lot. I think maybe 9 times, like big moves as a child. But she said, you know, she said in Ann Arbor, I'm at the grocery store. I turn behind. Oh, you got blueberries? Yeah, it's blueberry season. Really? Yeah. Oh, well, these are the best blueberries. They come from here. Da, 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 da. Oh, here, try some. Da, 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 da. And she's like, but then if I'm in these other cities, I turn around and be like, oh, you got blueberries, and be like, yeah, blueberries. That'd be like it for the conversation.
Yeah, it's true.
It's funny.
Yeah. My husband's not from here, and yeah, he thinks it's weird when people just kind of will just start talking to you in a store, especially downtown, because it's just, I don't know. I've worked downtown for so long. It feels like a nice little tight community. Even if I don't know people, it's fine. And I'll just talk back if someone starts talking. My husband is like, why were you talking to that woman? She was weird. I'm like, no, she's fine. You're just not used to it.
Right. I think we'd get along just fine. I like, if I'm in line or if I'm anywhere, you know, if somebody wants to get a conversation going on, let's go. You know, where you from? Where you from? You know?
Yeah, all the time. It doesn't bother me. And that was something that I noticed when I moved to the Bay Area in California. And I had a friend of mine, she's from Kalamazoo. She went to U of M. Now she lives down in San Diego. And the same thing would happen in San Francisco. She was walking through the city with me one day, and people kept offering to help us because we were trying to find a place. And I'd say, no, I actually live here. I'm fine. I just haven't been to this place before. And they would talk to us while we were waiting for the bus, waiting for the light to change across the street. And she said, my, people here are awfully friendly. I was like, yeah,
Yep.
they are. And it did take me
That's
a little
true.
bit to get used to, but I liked it. Because I never
Yeah,
felt
right.
unsafe. They weren't being creepy. They were just being friendly.
Mhm.
And the same thing
Yeah.
happens in Ann Arbor. People will, while waiting for the light to change to cross the street, people will comment or talk, and you just have your little conversation and you move on. Whatever, it's fine.
Yep.
We love
Wow.
it.
Hell yeah.
So, Crysta, what are you up to now? Nowadays in Ann Arbor?
I work part-time for the Ann Arbor District Library also.
Woo-hoo.
So yeah, that's another thing I think Ann Arbor doesn't necessarily appreciate is how good the library is.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
you can borrow electric guitars from the Ann
That's
Arbor
crazy.
Wow.
amps, sound equipment,
That's
lighting equipment.
crazy.
Yeah,
Well, that's good to
they're
know.
called tools.
Wow.
Yeah, go on the website and look under the tools section. It's amazing what you can get.
Yeah.
And that keeps me connected to the writing community in a different way. Also being on the retail side and then also on the library side. I meet a lot of authors and connect with people. And I'm editing an anthology, or helping someone edit an anthology right now that will hopefully be coming out for Kickstarter in December, but we'll see.
Nice.
But the editor's in Germany, so coordinating is sometimes a little difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a lot of what I did during the pandemic. Is I was at home, and so I wrote and I edited, I think, 3 books.
Nice.
So
very cool.
Oh yeah, you can also publish books through the Ann Arbor District Library.
Wow.
They have their own small press.
What do we say, Dion?
Avenue Press.
What do we say in Ann Arbor? There's no excuses when it comes to education, free education even.
Yeah.
Ann Arbor is mind-blowing what it has. And the quality level is insane. It really is. I mean, for free. You can self-educate there like no other place, and then get yourself to a next level and then move on, or up and onward, I suppose. But
I love that emphasis on education. And it's not, some people think it's snooty because it's U of M, but it's not. U of M is a fantastic university. I mean, there's just no arguing that. It just is. But there's also a lot of, I want to help. Like I want to, like, oh, you're interested in this. I want to help you learn. I want to teach you, or something there. I don't usually find like I'm holding this over you kind of thing. And I know some people do feel that way, but I really don't think that's the intent. Ann Arbor is growing very fast, and maybe some of the younger people coming in, maybe they're kind of full of themselves because, ooh, I got into U of M. But the people that have been here, I don't really find that with them.
No. People are generally very humble in Ann Arbor.
Yeah,
I find.
like they're pretty a little more down to earth, I think, than maybe some of these young kids coming in.
Yeah.
But
I would love, if you don't know Christine Crockett, I don't know if you've met her or not, but I think you and her would have a great cup of coffee or a conversation.
Yeah, I'll have to look her up.
I really think you two would.
She does the tours over there in the Carytown area.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know if they're started back up, due to everything, obviously, but they should be getting there at some point.
I've always wanted to do that.
But she gave us some good information on, because I always wondered the whole student body, the residents and the students and the student faculty, University of Michigan, how so much they were intertwined together. At community high school, what were they called? The courses, Ed? CR courses?
Yeah, I don't recall exactly, but something like that.
Yeah, I think there were CR, something like that. But students would want to learn stuff like Greek or Latin, which she studied, but it didn't have to pertain to that. But she would make a call to the university, say, I have a couple kids that want to learn Greek. She would send them over. And this was at the time. Now, this is back in the day, so we're not sure if it still happens. They would go take classes. They wouldn't get college credits for them, but they would come back to community high school and they would get credit for doing that. And she's like, us librarians, and very similar to what you were just saying, she's like, we don't want to tell students no, we're here to help. We want to help. So anytime she said she had an issue of something they couldn't cover a community, she would send them to the university and they would be like, what do you need? We're here for you. Even though they're not attending the University of Michigan, you come on in, we use the library, use this resource, take this class.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, crazy, you know, which is great. And it also fell off into other parts where you want to be a mechanic. All right, I'm gonna send you to Joe's mechanic shop. You work there for 6 months. You come back, you learn, and you get credit course for it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So Crysta,
Yeah.
before we get out of here, how about your podcast as well? I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, we're getting close to Halloween too.
Yeah.
Yes. I co-host a podcast called Haunted Mitten, which is about Michigan popular ghost stories. Our first episode is Ann Arbor.
Okay.
So you get to listen to a whole different side of Crazy Wisdom.
What was that place over there? Remember that bridge deal on that road? Was it Z Road or something? That bridge, the Haunted Woods.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
It's right. It's like right outside Ann Arbor. I can't remember, but
remember.
everybody used to be scared to go out there. You could hear the person
stories
screaming or something.
Stuff out there. Yeah.
There's a ton. There's like the Dixboro Ghost, which is a wild story. We haven't really gotten into that too much. I don't think on the podcast.
Okay, Crysta, now is this fictional or is this real?
They're actual stories and like legends, urban legends, and that kind of stuff. And then I do the kind of research part where it's like, okay, well, is there any basis for this? And because I just love history. If I can do a deep dive into a history, I will just spend days. And a lot of times we do debunk a lot of the stories. But that doesn't mean things aren't still happening. I mean, people are telling stories for a reason.
You have the unique position that you could actually ask a witch.
Yeah,
true.
Absolutely. I would love to do an investigation for Crazy Wisdom because I've heard strange things there. Other people have had weird experiences there. So I can't explain them. I have no idea.
But you know what the big question is? Do we have any haunted houses in Ann Arbor? Any reports?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of places downtown actually, like where I don't know if they're still there. ABC, the brewery. I think they might have moved, but that building was notoriously haunted.
Really?
Yep. I think MLive did an article on it. That you can Google. But and the owners were all about it. They were like, yeah, weird stuff happens here all the time.
Wow.
They didn't deny it at all.
Where can people find your podcast?
Yeah, where is it?
hauntedmitten.podbean.com or just anywhere you can download podcasts too, like Spotify, Apple.